Hello everyone, this is your friend Shinobi Nexus 2.0 and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is What If Naruto Fell in Love with Tenten and Secretly Married Her Part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. A 6-year-old Naruto stuck his tongue out to the side as he threw his kunai. It veered off far left and never got to the target. Aw man, how come I can never hit it? He whined loudly. Because you have no focus. Naruto turned to find a girl, who looked a bit older than him. She was wearing a pink Chinese shirt with green cargo-like pants. She had brown eyes and brown hair done up in 2 buns. Who are you? Naruto asked. My name is Tenten, and if you want I can help you with your kunai throwing, Tenten said. Really? You mean it? Naruto asked, hoping this wasn't some prank. Of course, Tenten said sincerely. Thanks. Oh, by the way, my name is Naruto Uzumaki, future Hokage, Naruto said, then struck a good guy pose. Tenten looked at the boy oddly, but just shrugged it off. I mean, he had a quirk, who doesn't? My name is Tenten Higurashi, future top kunoichi, she said, deciding match Naruto's form of address. They shook hands. Yay! Let's get started. Naruto shouted as he punched the air. Tenten looked at the orange-clad boy with curiosity. She had heard about him and couldn't understand why people treated him so bad and was told to stay away from him. He seemed nice enough even though he was loud and hyper. The rest of the day Tenten helped Naruto improve on his accuracy. He knew he could never match Tenten's level, but did his darndest to get close. By the end of the day Naruto was way better than he had started. Thanks Tenten, you helped me a lot, he said smiling. No problem Naruto, how about we meet tomorrow and keep going? Tenten suggested. Sure, I'm in, Naruto said happily. Scene break. Naruto and Tenten's training sessions paid dividends for the both of them. Naruto learned how to throw kunai and shuriken better, and Tenten had a training partner that she liked spending time with. Tenten was a year ahead of Naruto at the academy, so they knew they'd never be on the same team. But that didn't matter, since when did you have to be in the same year to train together? During their training sessions Tenten helped Naruto with his mood. He seemed to go to extremes and Tenten found a way to balance him out. Naruto became a lot happier and stable with Tenten. Tenten also unlocked Naruto's hidden brain. Now Naruto wasn't dumb by any standard. He was actually quite smart. He just didn't show it, since why show something that no one would appreciate him for? So he did pranks instead to show off his brilliance. What Naruto did for Tenten was, well, made her feel like a girl. She always put up a strong front of being a tough soon-to-be kunoichi, and since the classes in the academy in being a kunoichi was utterly horrid. I mean, what does flower arranging and doing tea ceremony stuff have to with being a kunoichi? So Naruto made Tenten feel like a girl. He treated nicely, but respected her as a ninja to be. He knew that she was tough and she didn't have to prove anything to him. So her guard went down around him. It was a great friendship for them both, mainly since neither really had any friends. Naruto was shunned, glared and sneered by the whole village that having just one friend was his saving grace. As for Tenten, she had a few friends, but they were guys and they were so-so friends since they were in the stage of not wanting to hang with girls. And the girls, well, Tenten didn't relate it to them at all. She preferred sharp pointy metal things to dolls, flowers and going googly-eyed for boys. Tenten's parents didn't mind Naruto at all. They didn't carry the hatred that the rest of the village carried for the boy. In fact, they invited him over for dinner many times just so he didn't have to continue eating only ramen. Though that didn't mean he stopped eating ramen for good. He just didn't eat as much. Her parents also owned a weapons shop that gave Naruto a slight discount on ninja items. So he was able to stock up on kunai and shurikens to practice with. When Tenten graduated, Naruto congratulated her on becoming a ninja. Scene break. A year later, Naruto sat waiting for his turn for the exam to be a ninja. He was ready. He just knew it. Even with Tenten working with her team, she still tried to make time for him. They trained and she even taught him what she learned during her team training sessions. Tree walking really helped Naruto with his chakra control issues, though he and Tenten figured out a way to get past that before that. This only helped him even more. Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto walked in confidently. He knew what was going on the test and he was ready. Okay Naruto, let's see what you've got. You know what we're testing you for, Henge, Kawarimi, and Bushin, Iruka said. Naruto nodded and then began doing all three of the required skills needed to graduate. He was thankful that Tenten had helped him on these since he needed it. Mainly on the Bushin one, that was the one he always had trouble with even with the chakra exercises he does. Iruka was proud that Naruto had passed and smiled at him. The other teacher Mizuki wasn't pleased that the little demon had passed since it messed with his plans, but he automatically rearranged his plan to include this new wrinkle. Yes, everything will be fine. Congratulations Naruto, you pass, Iruka said as he handed over a Hitai-8 to Naruto. Naruto left with it in hand and smiled. One step closer, he thought. Scene break. Tenten waited patiently outside for her friend. She was rocking on the balls of her feet with excitement. She knew he'd pass, she just knew it. She had that feeling in the pit of her stomach. She was so glad her sensei gave her the day off so she could be here for her friend. Once the class was let out, Naruto came and greeted Tenten with a hug. So, did you pass? Tenten asked, wanting to know. Naruto grinned and held up his headband like he was holding up a heavyweight champion belt. Tenten cheered and Naruto smiled brightly. Well, put it on, she said. Naruto took off his goggles and placed the headband on. It felt right. I'm one step closer to being Hokage, he said with excitement. Yeah, but you've got a long road. I still have a ways till I am the best kunoichi, you know, Tenten said wisely. Naruto nodded. They walked off hand in hand, ignoring some of the looks the adults were giving them. Mom and Dad are waiting, Tenten said. Naruto nodded and he and Tenten were about to go when they were stopped. Oh Naruto, there you are. Can I talk to you for a second? Mizuki asked. Sure. Hold on Tenten, Naruto said. Tenten nodded. Once the two were a bit of a ways away, Mizuki moved in close. You did real well on passing Naruto, but I think you could have done better, Mizuki said. What do you mean? Naruto asked with a furrowed brow. What I mean is there is a way to get stronger. Here, follow these instructions, Mizuki said, slipping a piece of paper to Naruto, then left. Naruto was confused and looked at the paper and found they told him the location of secret ninja scroll. He was excited and knew he had to check them out. Hey Tenten, I'll meet up with you and your parents in a bit. I got something I need to do, the new genin said, then dashed off. Tenten frowned and wondered what Naruto was up to. She decided to follow him to make sure he wasn't getting up to any trouble. Sure, Naruto had stopped playing pranks mostly, but he's still the occasional one when he was bored and needed a good laugh. Scene break. Naruto stole the scroll according to what the paper Mizuki had given him. It was easy. He was one of the best in stealth and evasion. I mean, you have to playing all those pranks and rarely ever getting caught. He then headed to the old shed and began reading them. Kage Bushin, this seems like a good one to start with, Naruto thought. Tenten was shocked when Naruto broke into the Hokage's office. This was not something Naruto would willingly do. He had to be coerced or something. She followed her friend to the woods ready to confront him, but ended up there too late and could only watch. Iruka had come and found Naruto. What happened next was Mizuki's treachery was revealed, as well as the secret that almost everyone in the village knew except Naruto and the younger generations. He housed the nine-tailed demon. This was shocking to Naruto, but he now knew why everyone hated him. What happened after that was Mizuki attacking, but was stopped by Tenten appearing. She wasn't about to let her friend get hurt. Fox or no fox, Naruto showed off his brand new technique and seriously beat Mizuki to a pulp. Afterwards he cried into Tenten's arms. When Naruto was finished, she led him and an injured Iruka, who protected Naruto when Mizuki tried to kill him with a windmill shuriken. The Hokage thanked Naruto for stopping a Rouge ninja and Naruto returned the scroll apologizing for what he had done. The Hokage just smiled and patted Naruto on the head. Tenten brought Naruto back to her house where her parents were waiting. Scene break. At Tenten's, though it was real late, there was a small party for Naruto making ninja. Tenten's dad gave Naruto a brand new set of kunai and shurikens along with sharpening stone and polish. Tenten's mom gave Naruto a new outfit more befitting of a ninja. The outfit consisted of black cargo pants that were designed to hold many ninja weapons as well as scrolls and such. He had a strong wire mesh top underneath a dark orange shirt. It was covered with a green coat with a swirl emblem on his left shoulder. There were seals embedded into the clothes with seals that fixed the clothing if it was ruined during a fight as well as cleaning tags too. Naruto also got a couple sets of the same clothes for when he needed them. Naruto was overwhelmed by it all since he never really got anything before. He thanked them profusely for the gifts and promised to take care of them. Tenten's gift was a katana she made for Naruto. She had been training Naruto in use of kenjutsu during their training sessions and Naruto was pretty good at it. He took the offered weapon and hugged his friend tightly. She returned the hug just as tightly. Since it was late, they only had a small time for the party and then they all went to bed. Naruto slept in the small spare room next to Tenten's that he occupied time to time. Scene break. A few days later. Naruto was bored out of his mind. The other new teams have already left, leaving him with his two fellow teammates and no teacher. The two others was one Sakura Haruno, fangirl of Sasuke Uchiha and the top of her class and his former crush. Then there was Sasuke Uchiha, who ranks the top of the entire class and the brooding duck-butt-haired boy. That was pretty much what he knew about his two new teammates and he didn't think he'd learn much more of them. Soon the door slid open revealing a man with silver gravity-defying hair. His Hittite was coving one eye and a mask that covered the lower part of his face. At first blush I can say that I don't like you. Meet me up on the roof, he said. With that he left and his three new students followed him. Once on the roof they sat and waited. Okay, to start, why don't we get to know one another a little better? What your likes are, your dislikes, your hobbies, your dreams. That kind of thing, Kakashi said in a bored tone. What about you, sensei? We don't know you at all, Sakura said. Fine, my name is Kakashi Hatake. I have very few likes and dislikes, my hobbies are none of your business and my dreams are private, Kakashi said. Gee, that helps us so much, Naruto said sarcastically. How about you go next, Pinky, Kakashi said. My name is Sakura Haruno, my likes are, she glances over at Sasuke with hearts in her eyes, my dislikes are Ino Pig, my dreams are, again she glances over at Sasuke, and my hobbies are. Great, a fangirl, why oh why did I have to get a fangirl, Kakashi thought with a grumble. You next, Mr. Emo, Kakashi said. My name is Sasuke Uchiha, I have few likes and more dislikes. I have really no hobbies and my dream is to get stronger to kill a guy and avenge my clan, Sasuke said in his typical brooding emo tone. Sasuke is so cool, Sakura thought. Great, an avenger. Just what I need, Kakashi thought. Okay, Blondie with the katana on your back, you're up, Kakashi said. My name is Naruto Uzumaki. My likes are training with my best friend Tenten, eating ramen and having dinner with Tenten's parents. My dislikes are people who are closed-minded, people who are snobs. My hobbies are training with Tenten, eating ramen and playing the occasional prank, and my dream is to be the next Hokage, Naruto said. Sasuke snorted when he heard Naruto's dream. Sakura ignored Naruto. Kakashi couldn't help but smile. Naruto was the most normal out of the three he had. Maybe this might not be a total waste. Okay, tomorrow you'll have a test. If you pass then you'll be Genin, he said. But I thought we are already Genin. Sakura asked. Yes, but this test will see if you are ready to be Genin. Just to warn you though, there is a 66% chance of passing this. Be at the training ground 7 at 5. Oh, and I suggest you don't eat because you'll just throw it up, Kakashi said. They jumped off the roof. The three genin glanced at one another wondering what kind of test they'd be taking. Scene break. So what do you think of your teammates? Tenten asked. She and Naruto were wandering around after Naruto's meeting. Tenten had a day off from her team training and missions. They're okay. Sasuke or duck butt, he has a big chip on his shoulder and very moody guy, but I think he is a good fighter, Naruto said. Tenten snickered at Naruto's nickname for the last Uchiha. As for Sakura, well, she is a total fangirl and I don't think she can handle being a ninja, Naruto said. Tenten nodded. And your sensei? She asked. Oh, he seems like a very laid-back kind of guy. I don't think I expect to get much training from him, Naruto said with a bit of a frown on his face. Hey, there's always me you can train with, Tenten said pouting. I know, but the point of having a Junin sensei was to learn from them. But it looks like I'll have to do it myself, Naruto said. Tenten nodded. She was kind of glad her sensei worked with her, though it was minimal at best since he didn't use weapons himself. I'll help you any way I can, she said firmly. I know you will, and I can't thank you enough for that, Naruto said with a smile. Tenten returned the smile. The rest of the day they debated on what Naruto's test would be. Though Tenten knew what the test would be, she acted like she didn't know. Scene break. It was 5 in the morning when Sasuke made it. Sakura arrived a little after that. They sat very hungry and tired, but were determined to pass their test. Naruto showed up at about 7:30 full of energy and ready to go. They waited and waited. Where is that lazy no-good teacher? Sakura screamed. Naruto winced at the sound and stepped away from the pink-haired girl and settled by a nearby tree away from the epicenter. Sasuke just grumbled. Finally Kakashi appeared at 10. Yo! He greeted with an eye smile. You're late. Sakura screamed. Sorry, a black cat crossed my path and I had to find another way, Kakashi lamely excused. Sakura growled, but said nothing. Sasuke just got up from the ground ready to go. Naruto made his way over ready too. Good. Now your test is this. You have to take these bells from me, Kakashi said as he held up 2 small silver bells. But there are only 2 of those and 3 of us, Sakura said, realizing the predicament. Yes, now you have an hour. The one who doesn't get the bell gets tied to this pole, Kakashi said as he pulled out a timer from his pouch. I want you to fight with everything you have to get the bell. That means attack to kill, he said. You may begin, now. Sasuke and Sakura rushed off to find a hiding spot, leaving Naruto standing there. Shouldn't you be hiding like the rest of your team? Kakashi asked. I should, but then that's what you want, isn't it? Naruto asked. Why do you mean? Kakashi asked. Simple. This is supposed to test how well we work as a team, Naruto said. Kakashi was amazed. Naruto was a lot of a heck smarter than what his academy grades said he was. He chuckled mentally. The boy was already a great ninja. Hide your talents from everyone to underestimate you. The Junin wondered what other tricks Naruto had up his sleeve, like can the boy actually use that katana on his back? So, what are you going to do? The Junin asked. Well, Sasuke is too stuck up to even consider to helping a dead last, like me, and Sakura would rather help her beloved Sasuke than assist me, Naruto said. So what's your plan? Kakashi asked curiously. Do nothing, Naruto said. Kakashi was surprised. Scene break. Sasuke was wondering what that loser was doing since he had done nothing, but seemed to talk to their teacher. It didn't really matter since he was an Uchiha, he needed no help whatsoever. After seeing the dead last walk away, he launched out of his hiding spot and attacked Kakashi. Kakashi easily dodged Sasuke's blitz attack. Soon Sasuke was throwing punches and kicks at Kakashi, with the Junin dodging them all and even pulling out an orange book to read. This infuriated the last Uchiha and fell back. He made hand signs. Fire style. Fireball jutsu. Kakashi was amazed that a boy Sasuke's age could use such a jutsu. His chakra development shouldn't be at this point. He dodged the fire and then disappeared. Sasuke looked around hoping to find him only to have Kakashi come up from the ground and tugged Sasuke down till only his head was showing. Sasuke grunted and groaned as he tried to free himself. Need any help? Naruto asked walking up. I don't need any help from a dead last like yourself, Sasuke spat. Naruto sighed and then walked off. Scene break. Meanwhile Sakura was suffering from the effects of a genjutsu that made her see Sasuke dying. Naruto found her and carried her back to where Sasuke was. He then freed her from the illusion. What happened? Sasuke. Sasuke. Sakura shouted then hugged said boy's head crying. Sasuke grumbled since he had no way of defending himself and Naruto was snickering at the sight. I mean it's not every day you see an overly emotional girl hugging a head in the ground. Well now, is that all you've got or do any of you want to try? Kakashi asked still reading. Naruto sighed and walked up. Fine, I'll try, he said. Kakashi just glanced up, but then went back to reading. Naruto got in his stance and drew his katana from its sheath. Kakashi shifted a bit to get ready. Sakura and Sasuke watched. Naruto went fast and Kakashi dodged, but he lost a bit of hair ducking the katana swing. He's good, the Junin thought. Naruto jumped back not wanting to be hit by a counter and got back into his stance. He then did a hand sign. Shadow clone jutsu. Several clones of Naruto with his katana appeared. This shocked everyone there. How in the world did he do that? Sakura wondered. That power. How did dead last get such power? Sasuke wondered. He's not supposed to know that jutsu. It's forbidden, Kakashi thought. Alright Kakashi-sensei, you ready for a real fight? Naruto asked. This ought to be interesting, Kakashi thought. They all rushed Kakashi like wild bulls, but that was only a ruse. They were all coordinated to attack and Kakashi had to put all of his effort into dodging them. He had to put his book away to do so. When one clone failed to get a hit, another was ready to land one. This is not like any new genin I've ever seen, Kakashi thought as he evaded another blow. The Junin had to use every instinct he had not to get hit, and it was thanks to his wealth of experience that he was unscathed for the most part. He would hit one, turning the clone to a smoke, but Morin kept taking its place, so Kakashi was doing his best to keep up. Sakura and Sasuke just watched in awe. It was an amazing sight. Soon the clones all disappeared in a poof of smoke with the original Naruto standing there grinning. Had enough? The blonde asked. Kakashi was panting. You are good, I'll admit that, but you've yet to get the bells, he said. Really? Then what are these? Naruto asked as he dangled the two bells in his hand. Kakashi was shocked and checked his hip and found the bells gone. Clever. Very clever. He used his clones to distract me while he grabbed the bells. Now that is teamwork, though he only used himself, the Junin thought. Sakura and Sasuke were completely shocked that a dead last like Naruto could beat a Junin like Kakashi. It just wasn't possible. That wasn't supposed to happen. Sasuke was supposed to get the bells, Sakura thought. How'd a loser like his do that? I must have that power. I need it, Sasuke thought angrily. Naruto shrugged and tossed the bells to Sakura, who caught them. Here, give the other to the Uchiha, he said, then turned to leave. Hey, where are you going? Sakura shouted. The test was to see if we could work as a team. We mostly likely failed it, so I am leaving, Naruto said. This caused Sakura and Sasuke blink as the whole thing came together. Kakashi sighed. He knew that Naruto was pretty much right. They did fail, but he really didn't want to. He liked this Naruto and wanted to see what else the boy had up his sleeve. Oh, plus there was the fact that Sasuke had the Sharingan, blah, blah, blah. You all pass, the Junin said. This stunned the three. Naruto had a foot in the air as his head turned around. How'd we pass? He asked, totally perplexed. Simple. You may have done the task by yourself, but you gave the bells to your teammates, leaving you nothing. That is what means to be on a team. Sometimes you have to sacrifice something for your teammates, Kakashi said, then walked over to the stone. You know what this is? Yeah, it's the memorial stone where the names of all Leaf Shinobi who've died are put on, Naruto said. Yes, many of my friends' names are on this stone. Remember this. Ninjas who disobey orders are trash, but ninjas who abandon their comrades are worse than trash, Kakashi said seriously. Naruto nodded, taking the words to heart. Scene break. Tenten was very happy that Naruto passed and he and his team were now going to take missions. She did warn him though that they missions he'd do were pretty dumb. Dog walking, catching a cat, weeding gardens, babysitting, carrying groceries. Those were the kinds of missions he'd get. Naruto was upset and disappointed upon hearing this, but Tenten told him that every ninja started like this. They had to start at the bottom before making their way to the top. So when Naruto started the missions, he took them without grumbling. Well, he grumbled, but internally. Sasuke was angry. These stupid missions did nothing for him. They provided no challenge at all. How was he supposed to gain power and kill his brother when they were pulling weeds or cleaning up trash in the park? Sakura didn't mind the menial work since she got a lot of time staring at Sasuke. Plus, there wasn't a whole lot of effort needed to do these things at all. That was fine for her. Kakashi just chuckled as he watched his team worked on these missions. He just read the whole time till they were done. It was about a few weeks into the and Naruto was now a bit annoyed. He had learned nothing from Kakashi. Though he knew that this would happen, it didn't mean it made him okay with it. So on a day when finally Kakashi showed up late as usual, Naruto had a question. Hey Kakashi-sensei, when are you going to teach us anything? He asked. What do you want me to teach you? Kakashi asked. Well, I need some work on my taijutsu. Mine isn't very good yet. I also need help on my ninjutsu too. I have no ability in genjutsu, Naruto said. Kakashi thought then nodded. Okay. How about you two? He asked Sasuke and Sakura. I am okay with anything Sasuke chooses, Sakura said. Naruto and Kakashi rolled their eyes at this. Well, Naruto rolled his eyes and Kakashi rolled his eye. Teach me some powerful jutsu, Sasuke said. Kakashi sighed. Fine, come with me, he said. Thus started the training of Team 7. Kakashi trained them. He started with the tree walking exercise and was surprised when Naruto could do it effortlessly. The one-eyed ninja just shook his head. I've got to learn never to predict what this boy can and cannot do, Kakashi thought. Sasuke was angry. If the loser could do it so easily, then he could do it flawlessly. He ran up the tree only to fall on his head. Sakura ran over to help him, but was pushed away. You've got to put chakra into the soles of your feet, Sasuke. You also have to determine how much to put in, since if you put in too much you'll step through the tree and get propelled off the tree, and too little and you fall, Naruto said from a high branch. Sasuke growled. How dare a loser lecture him? Kakashi smiled. He couldn't explain it any better. Well, you heard the man, now get to work, he said. Sakura was second in getting the tree walking, though that was because she had small chakra reserves to start with. Both Naruto and Kakashi both came to the conclusion that the girl needed to expand those reserves if she was going to be a capable shinobi. So Kakashi had Sakura run up and down the tree till she tired herself out. Sasuke was having trouble, but refused any help whatsoever. He would get higher each time, but never would he get to Naruto's level. This angered the boy. Naruto was ahead of him and that wouldn't sit right with the last Uchiha. As Sasuke and Sakura worked, Kakashi took Naruto aside and helped with Naruto's taijutsu. The Junin found Naruto was pretty good already and learned it was because of his training with Tenten. Kakashi knew he needed to talk to this Tenten to learn what the two have been working on, so that would give his a better assessment on where Naruto's skills were. After a few lessons, Naruto was getting better in taijutsu. Kakashi also got Naruto started on water walking, since that would help increase his chakra control even more. The boy had drive and Kakashi admired that. Scene break. There was a rhythmic thump, thump, thump that was followed by short grunts after each thump. Tenten was throwing kunais and shurikens at her targets, getting bull's eyes each time. She was training even after her team's training session. What she didn't see was a figure watching from the trees, watching her intently. Tenten had just finished when she felt something behind her. She spun around with kunai in hand, but felt her wrist being grabbed and she froze. Nice reflexes, Kakashi commented. Thanks, who are you? Tenten asked, confused. My name is Kakashi, Kakashi said. Oh, so you're Naruto's sensei, Tenten said, relaxing. Kakashi nodded and let go of Tenten's wrist. Tenten placed her kunai away. Is there something you want, Kakashi? She asked. Yes, I know you and Naruto train and I was wondering if you could give me an assessment on his skills, Kakashi said. Tenten had to blink. A Junin was asking her opinion on something. This was new. But Tenten decided to be honest and told Kakashi what she and Naruto trained in, though she never gave away any of Naruto's secrets. She knew that a ninja needs every advantage that they possessed, so she kept her analyst of Naruto pretty generic. Kakashi listened, even knowing that she wasn't telling the whole truth. He didn't care, he just needed a basis to work from. Thank you for your help. Now I know what I can help Naruto work on, Kakashi said. Tenten nodded. Kakashi, my eternal rival, whatever are you doing with my youthful student? Kakashi groaned. Why'd God have to curse him so? Soon a man somewhat taller than Kakashi appeared. He had a bowl cut and big bushy eyebrows. He wore a green spandex suit with orange leg warmers. He had a huge grin on his face. Guy-sensei, what are you doing here? Tenten asked, though she had groaned along with Kakashi upon hearing Guy's voice. Well, Tenten, I came to tell you we have a very youthful mission tomorrow and you'll need to meet the rest of the team by the north gate at 9, Guy said. Okay, Guy-sensei, tomorrow at 9, Tenten said, ignoring the word youthful. Guy nodded, then turned to Kakashi. One of my students, Naruto, has been training with Tenten here for the past couple of years and I came here to ask her about what kind of training they've done so I don't overlap, Kakashi said. I see, well then I see that your student's flames of youth burns as brightly as Tenten's. She is one of the best Kunouchi I have seen and it must be because of your dense flames of youth shining upon her, Guy said. Tenten blushed at hearing this. Kakashi just blinked and sighed. Even after all these years of knowing Guy, he still didn't understand half of what he said at times. I must go, thank you again Tenten for your help, the masked Junin said, then left, not wanting to deal with Guy for much longer. I got to go too, Guy-sensei. I should pack for the mission, Tenten said. Yes, go, and may your flames of youth burn forever bright. Guy shouted. Tenten ran away as fast as she could. 5-year-olds Naruto Uzumaki and Tenten were in the middle of packing. They were going on a trip with the Sandaime Hokage to Suna for some kind of peace treaty or something. The two kids were too excited about leaving the village to even listen to what the old man said afterwards. Naruto and Tenten lived together after they were both kicked out of the orphanage. Now Tenten wasn't kicked out because any kind of bad behavior, but she kicked herself out when the orphanage kicked her best friend, Naruto, out. She even stood firm whenever adoption day came. She wasn't going to leave her best friend behind. Whenever he was picked on by the other kids, Tenten would stand by him and defend him even if it meant she was caught in the crossfire. Naruto and Tenten were attached at the hip and nothing was ever going to change that, no matter what people did or said about Naruto. Tenten never budged at all. She and Naruto met one day after Naruto ran away from some of the older kids that were beating him up. Tenten took care of his wounds and vowed to be there for him from now on, and thus started their friendship. Naruto was given the smallest and draftiest room in the orphanage. They gave him the thinnest mattress as well as the most tattered blankets to sleep with. Tenten stayed with Naruto in his room, never caring about how cold it was in there. She helped him steal food so he could eat since they staff barely ever fed him right. So when the two got kicked out and the Sandaime found them several weeks later scrounging in the trash for food, he gave them a small 2-bedroom apartment in an apartment building he owned. Naruto and Tenten were the only tenants in the complex, but that suited them just fine. They did, however, have to learn how to be handy since the apartment building was quite old and had many problems. The landlord was stingy and didn't want to spend a lot of money on the place. So with that, the two kids learned how to do minor repairs on many things along with a little plumbing and carpentry. They got a certain amount of money from the orphan fund to take care of their needs. Tenten did the shopping due to the fact if Naruto did it, he'd buy just ramen. Though Tenten had to make sure she went to shops that didn't overprice things since she was a friend of the demon. There were a few that tolerate Tenten and that pleased her just fine. She was able to buy the groceries needed for herself and Naruto. Naruto, for his own enjoyment, had a small window box garden that he tended to. Tenten preferred to practice throwing kunai, which the Sandaime had gotten her and Naruto. Naruto wasn't much of a housekeeper, and that meant Tenten had to take on the role and made sure Naruto cleaned up after himself. Sure, they had their fights with one another about cleaning up the place, but in the end always made up and worked together to clean whatever mess they had. Naruto, are you sure you have everything packed? Tenten asked. Of course, Tenten, Naruto said confidently. Really then, let's take a look, Tenten said. What? Naruto exclaimed. Before he could stop her, Tenten looked through Naruto's pack and frowned. The boy sure didn't know what to really pack. She sighed and dumped out everything out and packed for him. Hey, I had that done, Naruto whined. A pack full of ramen cups with only 2 pairs of clothes isn't the correct way to pack, Tenten said in a chiding tone. Naruto pouted. So Tenten got to work packing the proper things Naruto needed. She sometimes felt like she was as much a mother to Naruto as a best friend at times. She had to make sure Naruto ate well enough and not just eat ramen all the time. He seemed to have an unhealthy obsession with noodle and broth concoction. She limited him to going to Ichiraku's only 3 times a week. She wanted to limit down ever further, but in the end they compromised. If Naruto ate more non-ramen foods, then he could have ramen 3 times at Ichiraku's. There, now you are packed, she said, wiping her brow as she finished packing Naruto's pack the right way. Yeah, I am packed, can we eat now? Naruto asked, holding his grumbling stomach. Tenten sighed. Fine, but no ramen, she said. Naruto pouted for being denied what he deemed food of the gods. Scene break. Naruto was a bundle of energy and would have ran circles around the Sandaime, the Anbu garden Tenten, if it weren't for Tenten reining him a bit. It took 2 weeks for them to get to Suna since they had to cross the desert, and neither Tenten nor Naruto had ever been in such heat. Naruto complained about the heat and sand for a while till Tenten threatened to gag him with the very sand around them, which made him shut his mouth and complain in his mind for the rest of the time. He knew very well that pissing off Tenten wasn't a smart idea at all. Sadly, he learned this lesson the hard way, with Tenten unleashing her wrath upon him and him fleeing for his life. When they got to Suna, they went through the gates after showing the guards their passes, then headed to the cage tower. There they met the cage. To the shock of the Hokage and Anbu escort, Naruto bowed respectfully to the cage. This was shocking since Naruto rarely if ever showed any respect to anyone really. Tenten knew Naruto had manners, he just rarely showed them to anyone. It is nice to meet you both. These are my children, the cage gesturing to the 3 kids standing behind him. Now, Lord Hokage, I believe we have an alliance to renew. Yes we do, the Hokage said with a nod. The 2 cages headed to the council chambers while the 5 kids went off to have fun. My name is Naruto Uzumaki, Naruto said with pride. Tenten sighed and shook her head at her friend's enthusiasm. My name is Tenten, she said. My name is Tamari, this is Kankuro and Gaara, Tamari said. Tamari was the eldest of the 3 siblings. She had dirty blonde hair, which she wore in 4 ponytails with green eyes. To her right was Kankuro, the middle sibling. He wore an odd cat suit that had small points that looked like ears. He wore makeup. I mean, wore paint on his face. Last was Gaara, the youngest. He had short red hair and a blank look. He had dark circles under his eyes. It's nice to meet ya. Why are you wearing your sister's makeup and where is the nearest ramen stand? Naruto asked. It's not makeup, it's war paint. Kankuro shouted. Tamari giggled at this since it was true that Kankuro would steal her makeup at times when he needed that perfect color. Tenten giggled then smacked Naruto in the back of the head causing Naruto to rub the wounded spot. Why'd you do that, Tenten? He whined. Because we're not going to spend all day eating ramen. We should take in the sights, Tenten said. Naruto grumbled a bit. A small chuckle was heard and everyone turned. They found the source of the chuckle was coming from Gaara. Tamari and Kankuro were shocked since they never heard any kind of amusement from their little brother before. Heck, they never saw their youngest brother show any emotion really at all. He usually kept a blank face and said very little. If you wish to see some sights then allow me to show you, Gaara said politely. Tenten smiled and nodded with Naruto following suit. Gaara led Naruto and Tenten with his two elder siblings wondering what changed their brother. As Gaara showed Naruto and Tenten around and told them about certain spots they all got to know one another. Tamari latched onto Tenten since she didn't have many female friends at all with being the daughter of the Cage and having a brother like Gaara, who was called a demon around the village. Not many other girls wanted to hang out with her. Tenten was the same though she had no female friends due to her association with Naruto and that she hated how girly the girls her age were. Kankuro kept wondering what was going with his little brother. Gaara seemed to open up to Naruto and they found an instant connection with one another. Tenten saw this and smiled. She knew Naruto had an amazing ability to make friends with just about anyone. It was one of his gifts. In the end the five kids became friends with one another and they just knew that this friendship would last. Scene break. A couple of weeks later the Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, and Kazekage, Kenshi Sabaku, were taking a break from renewing their alliance between their respective villages. It was slow going since the Suna Council was dragging it out as much as they could. Both leaders were tired and annoyed by the council's behavior and it took all of their patience and willpower not to kill them all. Tell me Lord Hokage, the boy you brought. He wouldn't be the Minato Namikaze's son would he? Kenshi asked. Hiruzen nearly choked on the tea he was drinking. He knew the Cage was smart, but he didn't think he would figure that out. You didn't become a Cage of a village by just strength alone. What makes you ask that? The leader of the Leaf Village asked. It's just that he looks very much like the Namikaze. Take away those whisker marks and he's a miniature version of Namikaze, Kenshi said casually. Hiruzen had to think carefully about what he'd say next. I am also asking since he and I have a contract with one another. Our children are supposed to be engaged to one another, Kenshi said. Shit. Minato, what have you saddled me with? Hiruzen thought. Here's the contract for you to see, Kenshi said as he pulled scroll from his pocket. Hiruzen read it and found it was legit. He now had to wonder what to do next. He could ignore this, but what would the consequences be? Not only that, but Naruto was already engaged to Tenten even though both kids didn't know it yet. That contract was set up by his mom and Tenten's parents. Tenten's parents also came from Whirlpool where Naruto's mom hailed from. Tenten's parents were some of the best weaponsmiths users ever though they died during the Kyuubi attack as collateral damage. It was very sad. I think we've much to discuss Lord Cage, but I think it is best we talk about this once we have a treaty solidly in place, Hiruzen said. Kenshi nodded. It was best to get the treaty out of the way before they had this discussion. Scene break. It has been several weeks now since Naruto and Tenten arrived in Suna and they were now used to the hot dry weather though they long for home from time to time. They missed the trees and the gentle cool breezes that felt great on a hot day. The desert dry heat was not something they really cared for, but they could handle it a lot better now. They did have the Sand Siblings, as Naruto called them. Gaara, Tamari, and Kankuro. The five were almost as thick as thieves now since they barely spend time apart. Tenten and Tamari got along since they both wanted to be strong kunoichi when they got older because they wanted to prove that they were just as good as the guys. Naruto and Gaara were practically brothers as Naruto somehow was the only one not to be afraid of the redhead. Gaara showed his first smile and laughed his first laugh with Naruto, and the path that destiny had written for the redhead was now changed. Kankuro moved in between the two subgroups since he really had no place, but that didn't matter to him much. At the moment the five were lounging around the Cage mansion. Tamari was reading a scroll while Kankuro was working on his puppet on the floor. Gaara was lying on the couch, Tenten was flipping a kunai in the air, and Naruto was lying on the floor staring up at the ceiling. So what should we do today? Naruto asked. I want to do some training. I got some kunai and shuriken I want to throw, Tenten said. Training sounds good to me, Tamari said. Gaara just nodded and Kankuro shrugged. It didn't matter for the middle sand sibling. Right, to the training grounds. Naruto shouted. The five made it to the training grounds they claimed as their own. It helped the sand siblings that their father was the Cage and no one said no to them really. When they got there, Tenten pulled out her pointy objects and began to throw them. Tamari joined in with her own kunai. Tenten helped Tamari with her throwing since the Suna girl wasn't as good as Tenten was. Kankuro was still fiddling with a puppet he had made. Though it was crude, it was his first puppet he had ever made and wanted to try it out. He was still trying to figure out the kinds of weapons to use. He couldn't add poisons in yet since he could get his hands on any. Plus he didn't know much about poisons either. Naruto and Gaara decided to have a little taijutsu spar. The two didn't really know any kind of style or form of fighting. They just went at it though made sure not to really hurt the other. You've gotten better, Gaara, Naruto commented. So have you, Naruto, Gaara said as he dodged another punch. Though Gaara had his sand to protect him, he didn't want to rely on it so much. Thus when he sparred he kept his sand use to a minimum as much as he could and worked on evasion and dodging as well as close range attacks. He knew that his sand could be disabled by the use of water and didn't want to become dependent on it. The Anbu watching them smiled under his mask. The five would be very strong shinobi, no doubt. Scene break. Finally the treaty was near completion. It took longer than what both rulers had thought it would take since the council was dragging their wrinkled old feet every step of the way, wanting more and more out of the treaty than what Konoha would allow. But now there was a proposal that would work for both villages. Lord Hokage, I believe it is time we continue what we were discussing beforehand, Kenshi said. Yes, I suppose so, Hiruzen said with a heavy sigh. The two leaders sat down and took the cups of tea they were served. I must first tell you that what I am about to tell you is very secret and not many know about this, and I fear what will happen if it leaks out, Hiruzen said seriously. Kenshi nodded. He understood the gravity of the topic that was to be discussed. You have my word that I will be the only one to know. Though I believe I will need to tell my daughter since it involves her as well as her two brothers, he said. That is fine as long as it doesn't go any further than just them, Hiruzen said with a nod. Kenshi nodded also. Good, Hiruzen said. He then told Kenshi all. How the Kyuubi was sealed inside Naruto and how Naruto is not only the heir to the Namikaze clan, but the Uzumaki clan, and how he already has a betroth for the Uzumaki side. Kenshi listened shocked and amazed that the boy came from two very powerful shinobi. The lad was going to be a terror to his enemies once he gets older. Not to mention a great ally to those he sided with. Well, this is much more than I ever expected, but I feel I must tell you that my youngest, Gaara, also houses a biju too. The one-tail Shukaku, Kenshi said. Hiruzen was shocked. Though he knew Suna did have a biju of their own, he didn't think they would have in a child, let alone in the Cage's very own son. I was against this if you must know, but the damn council forced me into it, Kenshi spat. Hiruzen nodded. He understood the pressures of the council. He had to fight tooth and nail to keep Naruto from being executed after the sealing, and then he had to fight to keep Naruto from being turned into a weapon. Heck, he's still fighting both battles every day. Now that we've relieved our burdens, I think it is time we find a way to make this work, Hiruzen said. Yes, this cannon will strengthen the bonds between villages, Kenshi said with a nod. So the two cages began discussing a plan involving the future of the 5 kids. Scene break. The 5 kids stood in the cage's office all wondering what was going on. Naruto was more verbal in his curiosity and Tenten had to silence him before he drove them all crazy with his guesses. The Sand siblings all silently thanked Tenten for this. They all liked Naruto, but he could be a pain sometimes. I am so glad you all could make it, Kenshi said sitting down at his desk. Hiruzen was sitting in a guest chair and smiled his grandfather smile at the 5 kids. Now, before we start, we both want to stress on how important what we're about to tell you and make sure you understand that this is very secret and cannot be told by anyone else, Kenshi said seriously. The Sand siblings nodded. They understood totally. As for Naruto and Tenten, well, they were confused. What would happen if we told? Naruto asked. Usually the penalty is death, Kenshi said plainly. Naruto paled and gulped. He now knew how serious this was. He may not be the brightest bulb, but he understood enough mainly thanks to Tenten hammering it into him. Tenten hearing this nodded though she was a bit pale too. Good, Lord Hokage, Kenshi said nodding his head to his fellow leader. Naruto, I was going to tell you this once you reached the rank of Junin or at least Shunin since I felt that you'd be strong enough by then, but certain things have made me move up my schedule. I know who your parents are, Hiruzen said. Naruto's eyes widened and he felt Tenten grab his hand to calm him. Who are they? He asked in a small voice. Their names were Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki, Hiruzen said. Tenten's mind worked fast as she tried to place the 2 new names. It was like a lightning strike, it came to her that fast. You mean to say Naruto's dad was the 4th Hokage, also known as the Yellow Flash, and his mom was the red hot-blooded Hanabaro? Tenten exclaimed. Yes, that is correct, Hiruzen said. The Sand siblings were shocked and looked at Naruto since they didn't think that he'd be related to 2 of the greatest shinobis that Konoha had ever had. Naruto was just plain shocked. He knew his parents' names and the fact that they were so famous. He didn't know what to say. But that isn't all, I am afraid. The history of the night the Kyuubi attacked is only partially right, Hiruzen said. What do you mean? Tenten asked, knowing the story. Due to the Kyuubi being made of pure chakra, there was no way of destroying it. So the Yondaime, Naruto's father, did the next best thing. He sealed it away into a newborn, Hiruzen said sadly. Somehow Naruto understood this right away. It explained all the dirty looks, being spat on, the reason why none of the other kids played with him, why he got the random beatings from the villagers. He held the Kyuubi. It's me, I hold the Kyuubi, the small blonde said softly. Yes, Naruto, but it wasn't something that your father wanted to do. If there was any other way, he'd have done it. He wanted you to be looked at a hero, but the village disregarded his last wish. It sickens me, Hiruzen said, frowning at the end. Naruto was about to open his mouth, but Tenten tightened the grip she had on Naruto's hand. Don't say it, Naruto. You aren't the Kyuubi at all. You are Naruto, my best friend, and nothing will change that. A kunai sealed in a scroll doesn't make it a kunai still. No matter what, Tenten said with tears in her eyes. Naruto looked at his best friend and hugged her. Tears were in his eyes as the two hugged one another. Soon they parted with Naruto whispering a thank you to Tenten. Tenten smiled at Naruto as she wiped her tears away. I am afraid that is not all. There is much more, Kenshi said, breaking the silence. Soon the 5 kids' world was rocked again. They found out about Gaara, and both of his siblings, Temari and Kankuro, stood by their little brother as he cried for probably the first time in a long time. There were hugs shared by the 3 siblings. Once those tears were dried up, the news about Temari's being engaged to Naruto was thrown out, with Tenten's engaged thrown in for good measure. Naruto's eyes were so wide they looked like they'd pop out of their sockets. Tenten was shocked. She had no idea about her parents except a few scrolls they left for her. They mainly told her about her heritage, but nothing in great detail, especially the fact she was engaged to her best friend. Tamari was also shocked since she had no idea either. She didn't know really how to feel since she did like Naruto as a friend, but to find out he was going to be your future husband was a lot to take in. Heck, she wasn't like most girls who ogled the cute boys and talked about, well, girly things. She was more of a tomboy, and that's why she related to Tenten so much. They were both tomboys, though they still had their girly moments. They were just far and in between. Gaara and Kankuro were just plain shocked. Their sister was engaged, and to Naruto of all people. They liked Naruto and all, but this was something that was right out of left field and they didn't really know what to think at the moment. Now with this we've come up with a plan. Though it will be very unusual and unheard of, we've decided to place the 5 of you in a team, Kenshi said. How can we be a team? I have always read that all shinobi teams are 3-man teams except for certain missions, Tenten asked. That is true, it's highly unusual to have a 5-man team. But this is a special case. We have decided on doing this for a few reasons. 1. We didn't want to split up the 3 siblings or split up Naruto and Tenten, so this was the compromise. Plus we wanted to have Naruto with both Tenten and Tamari so he could get to know his 2 future wives. We've also decided to train you early. I have already lined up instructors for you when you return to Konoha, Hiruzen said. Tenten and Tamari blushed at the word wives since they knew what that meant. When we return? Naruto asked curiously. Yes, you and Tenten are going to spend time here to start your training, Hiruzen said. Yes, you 5 are going to spend time split between Suna and Konoha. You'll be the first joint team of Suna, Konoha, Kenshi said. The 5 kids looked at one another and they came to a decision. They each nodded to one another and this led Naruto to speak for them all. When do we start? Naruto asked. Scene break. The training was brutal to say the least. The instructors Kenshi lined up for the quintet team kept them all on their toes as they learned what their strengths and weaknesses were. They also learned chakra controlling exercises, taijutsu, ninjutsu, genjutsu, and other shinobi skills they'd need. They also learned history, military tactics and other special courses Kenshi had lined up for just the 5. Now usually since they were still young they wouldn't be pushed too hard, but Kenshi and Hiruzen both agreed that this was needed for the 5 to become strong early. They had several plans for the Suna Konoha team. But they also knew that the 5 needed to be kids, so they made sure to give the 5 days off to relax and be their age. Gaara was long range and the main man on defense. His sand could be used to protect not only himself, but his teammates. He also could use his sand as an offensive weapon. What also happened was the great seal master Jiraiya of the legendary Sannin checked over Gaara's seal and reinforced it so Gaara would be more sane and be able to sleep now. It did make him have to relearn how to use his sand, which took some time since he had to focus harder when it came to using his sand than before. But it would soon become second nature to him like before. Kankuro learned the ways of puppets from Chio, who was the top authority in the art of puppetry. She hadn't trained a pupil since her own grandson, who is now a missing nin. But she was ordered to buy the cage and she had no choice. But she actually found new life with training Kankuro, his siblings along with Naruto and Tenten. They actually made her smile and her outlook on life became brighter, not so bitter. So Kankuro learned puppetry and became very proficient in it. He'd be another long-range fighter. Tamari would also be a long-range fighter when she showed she had a wind affinity. She was given her mother's fan and learned many wind jutsus since they found she had a wind affinity. She also learned taijutsu to complement her skills with her fan since they drilled into that she might lose her fan in battle and needed to know how to defend herself without it. She learned taijutsu as well as ninjutsu using her fan and without. Tenten would be their support with her amazing accuracy with kunai and shuriken. Not only that, but she had amazing natural ability with kenjutsu. She was so good that it shocked the instructors. Though after learning about Tenten's parentage they understood. Tenten's parents were not only the best blacksmiths of Whirlpool, but the top of Kenjutsu experts and were feared and revered. They could practically pick up any weapon and know how to use it in a few tries. It seemed that Tenten had inherited this ability from her parents. So Tenten's training was focused on learning more weapons, and along with that she learned Fuinjutsu so she could carry all of her weapons without being slowed down. Jiraiya stayed a while to help Tenten with this since he was the master in this area. The budding weapons mistress also was taught taijutsu and ninjutsu so she had other skills to fall back on in case she needed it. As for Naruto, he was a jack of all trades really. He had a huge chakra reserve, so that meant he would be the team's main ninjutsu user, though with parentage he had an amazing grasp on Fuinjutsu and ate up all the books Jiraiya gave him. Both his mom and dad were great with seals. His father was a master and his mother, well, Uzumaki's had Fuinjutsu in their blood really. Naruto would be the next seal master, and Jiraiya, who the 5 kids found out was Naruto's godfather, predicted that Naruto would surpass him. Naruto needed much work on his taijutsu since he seemed to be a brawler, and that wouldn't do even with his amazing healing ability thanks to the Kyuubi. So he was taught a form that suited his hard hitting and speed. They found he had no grasp for genjutsu thanks to the Kyuubi, so worked with him to identify and dispel them. That was all they could do. So with the training the 5 grew even closer. Naruto, Temari, and Tenten got used to the fact that they'd be married to each other. Though it was odd since they still had no idea how this would work. But they decided to worry about it later since the contracts weren't going to kick in for years. Scene break. A few years later, Hiruzen sat back as he read the progress report he had on the quintet team. They were progressing in quick fashion. They could be genin ready for the Chunin exams with their skills. But what they lacked was experience. But he and Kenshi had a plan for that. They were going to give the 5 missions right after the team was done training in Konoha. "Hey old man, we're here," Naruto announced. "Naruto, show some respect to the Hokage," Temari said as she whacked Naruto with her fan. Naruto yelped and fell to the ground, rubbing his bruised head. Kankuro sympathized with the blonde on the floor since he was usually the one to get whacked with Temari's fan for saying something stupid or perverted, usually both at the same time if you can believe it. Tenten sighed and helped her friend, fiancé up. "It's alright Temari. Naruto calls him that all the time. It's his own affectionate name for the Hokage. Just like he calls Jiraiya pervy sage," the weapons mistress said. Temari just sighed and rolled her eyes. Only Naruto could get away with this, she thought. Gaara and Kankuro bowed to Hiruzen. "It is great to see you all. You have grown so much," Hiruzen said. "We have. We've learned much in Suna and we hope to learn just as much here in Konoha," Gaara said. "I hope we will match Suna in their pace of training. Now as to where to place you. I am sorry Naruto, Tenten, but your apartment is much too small for the 5 of you," Hiruzen said. "Then where will we stay?" Tenten asked. "I have a small home that should suit you all," Hiruzen said. "Thank you Lord Hokage," Temari said. "Yeah, thanks old man," Naruto said, grinning big. Temari and Tenten sighed. This was a habit that would never be broken. Scene break. The training the quintet team got in Konoha was on par of the training they got in Suna. Their instructors got the reports of what they knew from Suna and just went from there. They were surprised at how advanced the group was. They'd be the most powerful team ever was on the mind of many of the instructors. Gaara had now an almost unstoppable defense and could block just about anything and everything that came at him or his teammates. He found he had an earth affinity, which wasn't surprising given he had control over any and all sand. Though his earth affinity didn't come from his Biju. So Gaara learned what earth jutsu they had available added to what he already knew. It was also found that he was a natural sensor, and this wasn't because of his tenant at all either. Kankuro didn't have much to do since he specialized in puppets and no one in Konoha knew puppetry. So what they did was teach Kankuro taijutsu so just in case he lost his puppets or something he could still defend himself. It was to be used as a last resort, but would be helpful to the puppet user since he wouldn't be useless at all. He didn't have the chakra capacity to do ninjutsu, so they decided to teach him some genjutsu instead since that didn't take as much chakra as ninjutsu do. Kankuro was working on mixing both genjutsu and his puppets in a deadly combination. Temari learned more wind jutsus with and without the use of her fan. She also got better in her taijutsu as well as learned some genjutsu, though she didn't really care to use it. She preferred her long-ranged attacks more. Tenten got more kenjutsu instruction and excelled at it. Her ninjutsu and taijutsu had improved greatly from when she had started, though not on par with her kenjutsu. She also was the best in projectile weaponry. She always hit her mark. Not to mention she had a small armory of weapons that was growing by the day, it seemed. All of them she knew how to use. Her skills in fuinjutsu was pretty good, and she had a bit of an obsession with explosive tags that frightened Kankuro at times. The girl loved explosions. She also learned that she had an affinity for water and began learning water jutsus. Naruto was skilled at all areas and showed it. His work in fuinjutsu was incredible, and all of his instructors were in awe of what he could do with seals. His taijutsu was much better now that he wasn't a brawler, though he still had those tendencies and that couldn't be broken. His ninjutsu was amazing, and it helped since he had huge chakra capacities and could use many jutsus without getting exhausted. Naruto grudgingly did kenjutsu to please Tenten since she wanted Naruto to, and he could never say no to her. Naruto's elemental affinity was found to be wind, and he had Temari help him work on that. When they were done with their training, they got their first mission. It was a real test. They were to take out a bandit camp that had been terrorizing a few nearby villages. The new team's objective was to wipe the bandits out. That meant they'd be killing them. The team knew that as ninjas they'd have to do this, but they were hesitant. They were young, but both Hiruzen and Kenshi both knew they were ready for action. They felt that this was needed. To get the Five's first kill out of the way and deal with the emotional healing needed after, then deal with it later when they aren't as prepared. It was decided by both cages that the joint team would be labeled as Special Genin. A term they both made up. They'd be just above the regular Genin, but not high enough to be Chunin. It was the same as the Special Junin position. It would work with the special circumstances this team was made of. Before the team left on their first mission, they got their headbands to signify they were now shinobi. Their headbands had both the Suna and Konoha symbol on them. Scene break. Fox in position, Naruto said into his mic. Raccoon in position. I'll get you for that, Naruto, Gaara said. Makeup boy in position. I hate you, Naruto, Kankuro said. Panda in position, Tenten said. Windy in position, Temari said. Right. Let's go, Naruto said. The five jumped from their positions around the bandit camp. There were 2 Junin there, one each from their respective villages, hidden just to make sure everything went all right, and if any trouble came about they'd step in. Naruto pulled out a katana from his back and slew what bandits he saw. Temari attacked from long range with her wind jutsus, as did Tenten with her kunai and shuriken. The two worked in tandem with one another. Temari's wind jutsus would help increase the power of Tenten's projectiles. Kankuro let out one of his puppet to play, and Gaara used his sand and crushed any bandit that got in his way. It didn't take long since they had the element of surprise on their side. Once done, they were tired and green in the face. All around them was dead bandits. They all threw up from the sight and smell of death they have wrought. The Junins watching over them felt for the team since they were so young to have killed, but knew they'd have to kill sooner or later. The 2 shinobi just hoped they wouldn't change too much and not for the worst. Scene break. After that, the team got more missions and were one of the best teams despite their young age. They had gotten over their horror of their first kills after some talks by some Junin along with the Hokage and Kazekage, who came to Konoha to check on the team. The combined effort of the 2 cages and the Junin telling them that they should fight for those they hold dear, not for power, not for greed, not for the fun of it, but to protect their precious people. This just drove them all to train harder and work harder to complete their missions. They got missions from both Suna and Konoha and they had a great success rating. They now stood in the Hokage's office waiting for their next mission. It was decided that since Temari would be living with Naruto once they married, that meant the team would be solely based in Konoha and the Kazekage would push Suna missions he wanted the team to do to Konoha. Though the team always had a place to stay in Suna if need be. Each of them had grown since they all looked like proud experienced shinobi. They were all now 12 to 14 years old. They were still special genin, but that was because they spent most of their time training and only just in the recent years became shinobi and special genin. They still had much to learn and both cages didn't want to push them through the ranks. Gaara wore a brown tunic that covered a mesh shirt with gray pants. He had a dark red, practically burgundy long-sleeve shirt that was under his tunic. He had a black sash going around his waist. He carried a gourd on his back. He no longer had the dark circles under his eyes due to now being able to sleep at night. He kept his red hair short like he always did. Kankuro wore the same outfit really along with his war paint, his main puppet on his back wrapped in bandages. He kept his other puppets in scrolls he carried. Temari wore a light blue battle kimono that covered a mesh shirt. Her battle fan was strapped to her back along with 2 mini fans on her sides. A gift from Naruto. Her hair done up the same with 4 pigtails. She also had shin guards on as well. Tenten wore a pink sleeveless Chinese shirt with green cargo pants. She had a weapons pouch on her right hip and had storage scrolls and seals hidden everywhere on her person. She had her katana on her back and her hair was done up like it always was. 2 buns. Naruto's outfit was drastically different. Due to his 2 fiancées pleading, he ditched his beloved orange jumpsuit. He now was wearing Anbu-style pants, a short-sleeved green shirt that covered a mesh shirt, and to top it off he wore a brown jacket with several pockets for him to carry scrolls in. On his back was a katana that Tenten insisted he buy. The sheath was actually built into the back of the jacket, though it could be removed if needed. His hair was as blonde, short and spiky as ever since both Tenten and Temari commented how they liked it like that. Naruto wasn't one to refuse the 2. "Ah, Team Firestorm. Here's your new assignment," Hiruzen said with a smile. "What is it, sir?" Temari asked. "You are to report to the academy and watch over the class of new genin. They are mostly all clan heirs and in need of watching," Hiruzen said. "What? Why do we have to do that?" Naruto asked in a bit of a whine. Hiruzen sighed. Even after all this time, Naruto was still Naruto. He may have calmed down and used his head more, but there were still times he was hot-headed, brash and acted somewhat childish, though not as often. He was also considered the leader of the team, though there was never an official vote or anything. It was just assumed. "Naruto, this is an assignment that I can only entrust to your team. You may be all more experienced than the class, but you are also the same age as them and can blend in easier. This will be a long-term mission till the class graduates," Hiruzen said. "I guess," Naruto grumbled. The Kyuubi had been contained, but at a price. Minato Namikaze, the 4th Hokage, died from it. Kushina Uzumaki, his wife, was in shock and had cried when she heard the news. She only had one thing left, her son, Naruto. Her only reminder of her one true love. Kushina. The redhead looked up to see Hiruzen Sarutobi, the 3rd Hokage, walk up. He looked sad and tired. He had retaken the seat of Hokage that Minato had resided due to popular demand. He now had grave news for the woman he thought of as his daughter. "I've come from the council. They have plans for Naruto," he said. "What plans?" Kushina asked with fire. "They want to confine him to the village. To be watched over," Hiruzen said. Kushina wasn't a fool, she knew what they wanted. Soon her anger, which she has been known for, was starting to show itself. "They aren't taking him, old man. Naruto is all I have left and he is coming with me. They can go to fucking hell for all I care," the redhead spat. "Kushina, please think about what you're doing. Minato wanted this. He wanted Naruto to be known as a hero here," Hiruzen said pleadingly. "A hero? Oh Minato, you idiot. The village won't see Naruto as a hero. They'll only see him as a demon and will take every chance they can get to hurt Naruto, Kushina said with surprising insight. Hiruzen sighed. He knew that might be a problem and had no plan to counter it. Hiruzen, I am leaving Konoha and Naruto is coming with me. There's nothing the council can do that will stop me, Kushina said firmly. Hiruzen sighed. He was really too old for this shit. What will you do? He asked, knowing he could not and would not stop her. Not sure, but I want to get out of here as soon as possible, Kushina said as her mind raced to come up with a plan. Very well, I will place you on a long-term mission away from the village, Hiruzen said, wanting to do one last thing for a close friend. Kushina looked at Hiruzen. You mean you won't stop me? She asked. No, but please take care of yourself and Naruto, Hiruzen said. I will, Kushina said. Give the old man a smile. It took a little time, but Kushina packed up all she could and with a final goodbye to the old man then she left with little Naruto in her arms fast asleep. Flashback end. Scene break. Years later, Naruto grew up healthy and happy. He was a ball of energy though, and Kushina sometimes didn't know how she could keep up with the boy. Thankfully she got help. That help came in the form of two of the three Sannin, Tsunade and Jiraiya. Shizune, Tsunade's apprentice, also was there to help out. It was a gift from Hiruzen. Tsunade had left Konoha after losing her last loved one, but Hiruzen tracked her down and gave her one last order as sensei to student. To help and watch over Kushina and Naruto. Tsunade did so as a last request from her sensei. Jiraiya did since he was Naruto's godfather and would stop in once in a while when he was in the area. He still had his spy network to keep up. Where is that boy? Tsunade asked, huffing. This broke Kushina out of her thoughts. Lost him again? The redhead asked with a smile. Yes, but I have no doubt that Jiraiya is trying to corrupt him and I will not have him do that to Naruto. We don't need another pervert, Tsunade said. Kushina nodded and helped Tsunade on her search. No son of hers will be a pervert peeking at women in the hot springs while giggling and writing smutty books. No sir, not on her watch. Scene break. Naruto learned a lot from the two Sannins and from his mom. He got trained early and they found he had great stealth and evasion skills. Hell, the kid could outrun you and hide where you'd never find him. He had a ridiculous amount of chakra, which they attributed somewhat for housing the Kyuubi. The hard part was for him to focus that chakra and to use it correctly. They worked with him on several chakra exercises there is to help his control. After he got that down he then learned ninjutsu. Taijutsu was taught after his chakra control lessons. They found he couldn't do genjutsu whatsoever, so they had him concentrate on recognizing it and dispelling it. He also learned fuinjutsu from Jiraiya and healing jutsu from Tsunade. The training Naruto got would put him ahead of his classmates when he would head to the academy. He'd have skills that were supposed to be taught when you reached Chunin and higher. Naruto was a sponge and soaked up all that his mother and the two Sannins taught him. He even learned the Uzumaki style of kenjutsu that his mom used. Scene break. Come on Naruto, you can do better than that, Tsunade said. Naruto was tired and panting as he kept up the drill Tsunade had placed before him. He was lifting two water-filled buckets onto his shoulders. He had to do squats with these buckets on his shoulders and couldn't stop till Tsunade told him so. But I am tired, Naruto whined. Tsunade sighed. She knew she was pushing Naruto, but she knew he could take it and it would make him stronger in the end. She wasn't going to have another one whom she loved get killed. She was going to do everything she could to make sure he lived. Scene break. Naruto arrived back in Konoha with his mom, the two Sannins, and Shizune. He was ready to take the Genin exam. It was decided by Hiruzen that Naruto had learned more than enough after reading the reports he got from Kushina and his two former students that Naruto could bypass the class and take the exam. So here Naruto was ready to go. He arrived in the classroom and handed the teacher a scroll. Students, this is Naruto Uzumaki. He'll be taking the Genin exam with you, the teacher said. What? That's not fair. He should go through the academy like the rest of us, a wild-looking boy with a puppy sticking out of his coat. He had special training outside the village Kiba and the Hokage deemed him fit to take the exam, the teacher said. The boy, Kiba, grumbled. Naruto found a seat and sat down awaiting the exam to start. The first part was a written test and Naruto snorted at how easy it was. He remembered hearing from his mom and the two Sannin of how hard the genin exam was, but the standards must have serious dropped to make it this easy. After the test the class went outside for the next portion. They were to throw 10 kunai and 10 shuriken at dummies with specific targets on them. Naruto watched all of them and shook his head as he watched the girls. Fangirls, he muttered under his breath. He had heard of them from his mom and the Sannin and how useless they were and were liable to not only get themselves killed, but also their team too. He sighed and shook his head. Soon his name was called and he nailed all 10 targets on both dummies. A feat that only one other was able to do, the class emo, Sasuke Uchiha. The blonde heard shouts of how he must have cheated and the like, but he ignored them and waited for the next part. Next part was a sparring match of just taijutsu. Naruto watched each match pointing out the clan children and the non-clan children. He was called and beat his opponent who was some kid that was from a non-ninja family. After that they all went back inside for the final part, which consisted of performing 3 jutsus. Henge, Bushin, and Kawarimi. Naruto knew these 3 by heart and when he was called he did them, although for the Bushin he had a note telling the teacher about his condition. Naruto had too much chakra and it made it hard to perform a regular Bushin, so to make up for the Naruto learned the Kage Bushin. Naruto passed and he smiled as he took his Hitai 8 from the teacher. Scene break. In the Hokage's office 5 people sat catching up. So, how well do you think Naruto will do? Hiruzen asked. The brat will blow them all out of the water. He's a natural, Jiraiya said smugly. I have to agree. He's probably one of the best in the class, Tsunade said. I see, but now we need to figure out what team he should be on, Hiruzen said. Naruto excels in close combat with his taijutsu, but he knows enough jutsus to be a long-range threat also with his ninjutsu, Kushina said. He also knows medical jutsus, so that will be a bonus to any team he is on, since I highly doubt there are many who have that skill, Tsunade said. That was always a big issue. Tsunade was for having a med nin with each squad, but there were so few since it was a hard skill to learn and took a lot of time to train someone in. The council thought it was a waste of resources to do such a thing. He also has talent in Fuinjutsu also. He's going to surpass me soon, Jiraiya said. Hiruzen was amazed. Seal masters were rare in all of the shinobi world. The skill was very time-consuming and it took much time to be proficient in seals that many avoid it, only going with the basics of storage and exploding seals, and they were rare still. Though he should have known since it was in Naruto's blood, as in Uzumaki Fuinjutsu would come naturally to any Uzumaki. He also knows Kenjutsu too. I taught him my personal style. He'll be a terror for any who face him, Kushina said with a pleased smile. Hiruzen gulped. He remembered seeing Kushina fight in Kenjutsu and it scared the hell out of him. Kushina's Kenjutsu style acted just like a true whirlpool. It destroyed everything in its path in a chaotic and unpredictable manner. So he's going to be a jack of all trades in the team, Hiruzen said after regaining himself. The 4 nodded. Does he know? Hiruzen asked. No, I am going to tell him tonight after he gets his Hitai 8, Kushina said. Hiruzen nodded. They chatted a bit more then found where they'd live. Tsunade still had a clan home that Hiruzen had kept up and with help of some genin and got it fixed up for their return. Scene break. Naruto walked out smiling as he now had the leaf Hitai 8 tied around his forehead. He was met by his mom, who hugged him tightly. Knew you could do it, dear, she said. Thanks, Mom, Naruto said. Never a doubt, brat, Jiraiya said with a smirk. Thanks, pervy sage, Naruto said with a grin. A vein popped out of Jiraiya's forehead and began to throb at this. I thought I told you to stop calling me that, the white-haired Sanin said through gritted teeth. But Auntie Tsunade said she'd give me candy every time I called you that, Naruto said with a head. Jiraiya looked at his old teammate, who tried to look innocent. Shizune was trying to smother her giggles. Come, let's go celebrate, Kushina said with a smile and shake of her head. Naruto nodded. Scene break. They had a great party at Tsunade's home and everyone had a good time, though it was only buying time for the big news Kushina would need to tell Naruto. She was worried how he'd react to knowing why he didn't have a dad. She held it off till Naruto was in bed. There's something I need to tell you, Naruto, Kushina said as she smoothed out Naruto's bedding. What is it, Mom? You can tell me anything. I am a ninja now. I can take it, Naruto said in a bit of a boastful tone. Kushina smiled, though she knew that smile would fade soon. It's about your father, she said. My dad, Naruto said, blinking. Yes, you see, years ago a demon known as the Nine-Tailed Fox or Kyuubi attacked the village. Your father was the Hokage at the time and he fought it. He did something very brave, sacrificed himself to save the village, she said. So, he died killing the Kyuubi, Naruto said, looking down sad. No, the Kyuubi is made of pure chakra and can't be killed. So he sealed it away. You must know that your father was a seal master. He learned this from Jiraiya, who was his sensei, Kushina said. You mean the pervy sage was dad's sensei? Naruto exclaimed. Scene break. In another part of the house a vein bulged and throbbed. I'm going to kill that brat, a white-haired man grumbled. Scene break. In another part of the house Tsunade just smirked. I owe the kid more candy now, she said as she downed another saucer of sake. Shizune just sighed and shook her head as she tried to stop Tsunade from finishing off the bottle. Scene break. Yes, he sealed the Kyuubi into a newborn baby, Kushina said hesitantly. Who was the baby? Naruto asked. It was you, honey, Kushina said, not even looking at Naruto. Naruto was shocked. But the seal, I've never seen it. How can I be the prison? The spiky-haired blonde asked, shocked. Channel some chakra into your stomach, Kushina said. Naruto did as he was told and lifted his pajama top and saw the seal. He touched it gently, partly in fear of messing with the seal. He looked up and saw tears in his mother's eyes. Why? He asked with tears in his eyes. Your father did what was best for the village. That means that you have to give up and sacrifice things you cherish the most for the good of the village. If he had any other choice, he'd have taken it. Believe me, Kushina said as tears streamed down her face. Naruto sat there with tears in his eyes. He didn't know what to think. He housed probably the most dangerous creature ever, and it was all because of his dad. He had always wondered who he was. When he asked his mom before, she'd always tell him that he was a brave and courageous man. Now he wasn't so sure. He needed to think about this. Kushina left Naruto's room knowing he'd need time to let it all sink in. She just prayed to God that everything would be alright. Scene break. The next morning Naruto got up and headed down for some breakfast. He saw Tsunade, Shizune, Jiraiya and his mom sitting there already. Morning, Naruto greeted, though there was no cheer in his voice. Naruto, come sit with us, Shizune said. Naruto nodded and sat beside Shizune, who he thought of as a big sister. He felt her arms wrap around him in a hug and Naruto hugged her back. How are you doing, kid? Jiraiya asked. I don't know, Naruto said, still holding on to Shizune. Naruto, we know that this is a lot, but we want you to know that you aren't any different. You may house the Kyuubi, but that doesn't mean you are the Kyuubi. You are Naruto Uzumaki, Tsunade said. Thanks, Auntie Tsunade, Naruto said softly. I am sorry I burdened you with this, Naruto, but I felt that you were old enough to handle it, Kushina said with tears in her eyes. Naruto finally let go of Shizune and went to his mom and hugged her tightly. I don't blame you, Mom, but could you tell me some stuff about Dad sometime? He asked. Naruto stayed up late thinking about his dad and what he now held. He wanted to hate the man, but he knew that what his dad did was probably the only way. And he used him since he couldn't bear do it to anyone else's child. He kind of felt proud his dad put so much faith in him even though he was so young. He made a promise to himself to make his dad proud. Sure dear, and I am sure Jiraiya can tell you some things too about your dad, Kushina said. Naruto looked over to Jiraiya, who nodded. The breakfast was a somber one, but everyone felt good that this weighty shadow was lifted from them all. Scene break. After breakfast, Naruto wandered down the road of the Leaf Village looking for a weapons shop. He finally found one and entered. Hello, how can I help you? A girl with 2 hair buns at the counter asked. Yeah, I am looking for sets of kunai and shuriken as well as some armor, Naruto said. Well then I can get the kunai and shuriken for you. As for the armor it's down that aisle there, she said pointing to it. If you need any help just yell. Thanks, Naruto said and headed off. He found the armor and got his size. He then looked around and found some weights. I can use those to train with, but what kind to get? He thought. He looked between the chakra weights, which you can control how much weight you want by inputting a certain amount of your own chakra. Or go with the standard weights that are commonly used by most villagers and some shinobi. Soon he retuned with armor and weights, both chakra ones and non-chakra ones. On the counter the girl had 2 sets of kunai and shurikens waiting for him. Wow, that's some serious gear you picked, the girl commented. Yeah, well I was told to get the best equipment and I couldn't decide on which weights to go with so I decided to go with both, Naruto said rubbing the back of his head. You're a new genin aren't you? She asked as she saw the shiny new Hitai-8 on Naruto's head. Yep. Name's Naruto Uzumaki. What's your name? Naruto asked. My name is Tenten. My family owns this store, Tenten said. Nice to meet you, Tenten, Naruto said holding out his hand. Tenten shook Naruto's hand and smiled. Nice to meet you too, Naruto, she said. The two chatted a bit more with Tenten getting more interested the spiky-haired blonde. I'd love to spar against you sometime, she said after hearing that he used kenjutsu to fight. I'm game, name the place and time, Naruto said. After that they made plans to spar and Naruto paid for his stuff and left smiling. He had a new friend, his first and that was great in his book. Scene break. It was 4 days and today was team placement day. Naruto made it to the classroom and sat down way in the back and waited for things to start. The class was noisy with everyone talking about missions they'd be taking to who might be on their team. Excitement was the buzzword. The real noise started when 2 girls entered and began arguing on who'd sit with the resident emo. Naruto winced at how loud they were and so wished he could shut them up. Soon the teacher came in and sorted the 2 girls out. All right, settle down, the teacher said. None of the students listened. I said quiet you brats. He screamed while his head became huge. This got the class to go silent. Good. Now time for team assignments. Team 1 is, he said. Naruto ignored it all till his name was called. Team 7 is Sasuke Uchiha, and Sakura Haruno. A pink-haired girl shrieked in triumphant. Ha! Beat that Ino pig. Sasuke is mine. A long-haired blonde glared at the pink-haired girl. And Naruto Uzumaki, the teacher finished. What? Why do I have to be with the boy who's too good to go through the academy like everyone else? The pink-haired girl shouted. Naruto winced at the girl's shrill voice. He wondered if the girl was related to a banshee or howler monkey. These are your teams, Sakura. Until you become Chunin you are stuck with them, the teacher said with a sigh. He was so glad that he'd never have to hear that shrill voice ever again. The girl, Sakura, pouted. Though she was happy that she was with her Sasuke. Why should you be upset? I am stuck with the banshee of the room and the moody duck-butt-haired boy who looks to be more emo than ninja, Naruto said from his spot in the back of the room. Snickers and smothered laughter was heard at this. How dare you insult Sasuke, Sakura said as she charged in to punch Naruto. Naruto evaded her punch easily. He grabbed her wrist and twisted it around till her arm was behind her back. He then pulled a kunai out with his other hand and had it to her neck. All this happened in a blink of an eye, shocking everyone in the room. Not nice attacking a fellow teammate, Naruto said calmly. Sakura gulped as she felt the thin sharp edge of metal on her throat. Naruto let her go and put the kunai back in his pouch and plopped back in his seat like nothing happened. Okay, let us continue, the teacher said, still a bit in shock at what Naruto had done. Scene break. Naruto was leaning back on his chair staring at the ceiling with his two new teammates. All of the other genin have gotten their senseis, with them being the last ones. Sakura was keeping her distance as she tried to chat up Sasuke for the umpteenth time. Sasuke was ignoring her and thinking about how good Naruto was really and if he'd be an adequate challenge at all. Soon the door opened and a silver-haired Junin popped his head in. He wore a lazy expression. From first blush I can tell you're all pathetic. Meet me on the roof, he said. Sasuke glared at the Junin, as did Sakura. Naruto didn't even move at all. Sasuke and Sakura got up and headed to the roof while Naruto disappeared in a swirl of leaves, still sitting. Scene break. Kakashi was shocked to see one of his students already appearing, and by using that technique. This was going to be more interesting than he thought. Naruto saw that Kakashi was reading and decided to take a page from him and whipped out a book he had. Sasuke and Sakura made it finally and were shocked to find Naruto already there, and he was reading a book they've never seen before. How'd you get up here so fast? Sasuke asked in a demanding tone. I ran, Naruto said without looking up from his book. Kakashi had to swallow his laughter at the blonde's answer. Yes, this will be interesting indeed. Sasuke glared at Naruto. Okay, since we're all here, then I guess we should introduce ourselves. So tell me about yourself. Likes, dislikes, hobbies, dreams. Stuff like that, Kakashi said in a lazy tone. Why don't you start, sensei? Sakura suggested. Fine, my name is Kakashi Hatake. I have some likes, some dislikes, my hobbies are none of your business, as are my dreams, Kakashi said. We didn't get anything except his name, Sasuke and Sakura thought. Smart. Very smart, Naruto thought. Okay, Pinky, you're next, Kakashi said. What he got was a giggling and squealing reply, with her continuously looking at the brooding boy. Great, a fangirl, why has God punished me? Kakashi thought. Okay, brooder, you're up, he said. The brooder went on about how he was pretty much an Avenger, who didn't have much in the likes and dislikes department, since his only goal in life is to kill one person and restore his clan. Yeah, now I have an Avenger too. A fangirl and an Avenger. This makes like a bad soap opera or something, Kakashi thought. Okay, Blondie, you're next, he said, though he was very curious as to what the blonde will say. Name's Naruto Uzumaki. My likes are too numerous to count, my dislikes are only a handful, my hobbies are my own business, as are my dreams, though they are known to those who are precious to me, Naruto said. Now he's interesting. He pretty much used my own intro, but changed it to fit him. I like him, Kakashi thought with a smile. He then went on about a test that they needed to pass and then gave them a time and place to be. He then left. Sasuke left, as did Sakura, who followed him, asking him out on a date even though the emo keeps turning her down each time. Naruto headed off a bit after them, using the same technique he used to get to the roof. Scene break. Back home, Naruto told his family all about his new team and instructor. So your sensei is Kakashi, huh? Kushina asked. Yeah, you know him. Naruto asked. Yes, he was one of your father's students, Kushina said. Naruto was shocked to hear this. Really? He asked. Yes, Kushina said. I've also heard around that he's late for everything. So don't get there at 5 and eat too. Breakfast is important, so eat it, Jiraiya said. Naruto nodded. So Naruto, tell us more about the girl you met a few days ago. Shizune asked. Who? Tenten. I told you all I know about her last time, Naruto said, confused. Well, aren't you supposed to meet here somewhere right now? Shizune asked with a grin. Shit. Gotta go. Naruto shouted, then left in a blur. That was mean, Shizune, Kushina said, frowning. Oh, let me have my fun, it's hurting him none, Shizune said. Kushina sighed and shook her head, though she did find it funny to see her son like that. Scene break. Naruto made it with seconds to spare. He was panting heavily when he got there and found Tenten waiting for him. About time, I was starting to think you weren't going to show, she said. Sorry, I was telling my family about my new team, Naruto said. Tenten accepted this. Fine, well, let's get started, shall we? She asked. Naruto nodded. Naruto pulled a scroll and released some chakra onto the scroll, and in a puff of smoke a sword appeared in Naruto's hand. Tenten's eyes widened as she sped to Naruto's side quicker than any ninja could ever move, with chakra or without. Naruto jumped slightly at having Tenten at his side so fast, and so close. Tenten had a glassy, starry-eyed look as her eyes caressed the blade in Naruto's hand. I've never seen such craftsmanship before. It's so unique. Oh, please let me hold it, please, just one time. Tenten asked like a 5-year-old on a sugar high. Naruto was a bit scared now with the way Tenten was acting. Sure, he said hesitantly. Tenten took the sword and swung it a bit, then looked closer at the craftsmanship and found that the blade had no blemish at all. No tool marks whatsoever. It was unreal, since no blade ever made could be this perfect, but it wasn't. She was holding it. I think I am in love, she muttered. Naruto blinked at Tenten, confused as to why she had said this. Tenten, are we going to spar or not? He asked. Oh, sorry. I get a little wacky when it comes to weapons, Tenten said, now back to normal, though she was sporting a blush on her embarrassed face. Right. Well, the blade is called Wave Slicer. It's a rare blade that my mom gave me, Naruto said. I guess I better get ready then, Tenten said as she got her sword out. Shall we begin? Naruto asked. Tenten nodded. Soon the sound of metal clashing on metal was heard. Tenten and Naruto fought one another with all their might, though keeping in mind that this was a friendly thing and not to kill. Tenten was in awe. Naruto was very good with his sword. His technique was something she had never seen before, and it was hard to counter what you've never been against. The way Naruto used his sword was chaotic, unpredictable even. She had to mostly block a lot of his attacks and look for openings, which there were some of, but she'd never connect since Naruto would parry her attacks away swiftly. As for Naruto, he found he liked sparring against Tenten. She looked cute with her face coated with sweat, as well as how flush her cheeks were. Then there was the steely determination in her eyes. He may have not noticed it at all, but he was falling for her. Soon both were tired and panting. Call this one a draw? Naruto asked. Yeah, Tenten said with a nod, though she was disappointed at not winning the spar. She felt like plopping to the ground. Never had she been pushed so hard in Kenjutsu. Mainly since neither her two teammates nor sensei had much preference with it like her. So they couldn't help her much, not like how Naruto had in just one spar. They moved over to the shade of a tree and rested against the trunk. Where'd you learn that? Tenten asked. My mom taught me. She's one of the best swordswomen ever, Naruto said. Really? Who is she? I might know her, Tenten asked with extreme curiosity. Kushina Uzumaki, Naruto said. Tenten thought through and her eyes widened. You mean your mom is the bloody whirlpool? She asked, shocked. Yeah, Naruto said. Tenten couldn't believe it. Naruto's mom was one of her heroes. The bloody whirlpool was not only the best swordswoman known, but was one of the most lethal kunoichi too. Not many survived after she fought them. She tore through them like a helpless ship in a mighty whirlpool. Can I meet her, please? She's one of my heroes. I just got to meet her, please. Tenten asked, throwing on her puppy dog look. Naruto, who had no experience with this lethal SS rank technique, fell to it quickly. Sure, he said. Tenten let out a girly squeal, which for those who know the weapons-loving girl would find quite disturbing. Tenten never squealed, ever. Naruto jumped at the sound and had to cover his ears. It was loud. Plans were then made and Tenten was invited to dinner. Scene break. Later that night Naruto was back home getting ready to have dinner with his family. So how was your little sparring session, Naruto? Shizune asked. Great. Oh, by the way, she's coming over tomorrow night for dinner, Naruto said. Bringing your girlfriend over to meet the family already? You sure move quickly, Naruto. What's next? Wedding bells? Shizune asked with a glint her eyes. Naruto sputtered around for a good while as Shizune watched amused. Jiraiya and Tsunade watched laughing as Kushina smiled as she made dinner. Shizune, quit that. Naruto is just inviting a friend over, Kushina chided. Ah, come on, Shizune said with a pout. No, Naruto is too young to have a girlfriend yet, Kushina said. Naruto let out a breath, his mom had saved him. Anyway, I'd like to meet the girl first and get to know her before I give them my blessing, Kushina said with a mischievous smile. Naruto's jaw dropped as the other three adults burst out laughing. Once dinner was ready and everyone was eating, Naruto told them about his spar with Tenten and everything. Looks like you've got a fangirl, Kushina, Jiraiya said grinning. I guess, I never really thought about being looked up to or idolized, Kushina said a bit stunned at having a fan. The rest of the evening was relaxing since Naruto knew he'd need all of his strength tomorrow. Scene break. The next day Naruto woke up early, though he knew from Jiraiya that he didn't need to get there too early. He washed up, ate breakfast with his family and did a bit of light training to warm up before he had to get to the training grounds. When he got there he found Sasuke and Sakura both leaning on the same training post looking half asleep. He wandered over, finding a tree nearby and leaned against it. He pulled out the same book he had yesterday and began to read. It was a book on seals. Soon it was 10 and Kakashi finally showed up. Yo, he greeted. This startled both Sakura and Sasuke. Naruto looked up and waved at his sensei. You're late, Sakura screamed. Yeah, about that. I got lost on the road to life, Kakashi said, rubbing the back of his head. Lair, Sakura shouted. Anyways, let's get started, shall we? Kakashi asked as his ears rang slightly from the high-pitched sound. Naruto sighed. He had just finished a long mission and wanted to go to bed. He had just finished up with another assassination mission and all he wanted to do was sleep off another kill he had to do. The blonde-haired boy was a part of the elite Anbu, a force that only obeyed the Hokage. But here's the kicker, Naruto is only 11 years old. He is the youngest Anbu ever. Though he is young, he's quite experienced and has already killed multiple times over. He's skilled with Fuinjutsu to close to a master level, and his taijutsu, ninjutsu and kenjutsu make him on par with mid to high Junin level. He's said to be a genius and a prodigy. Though the reason he isn't thought of so highly or even known in the village is the resident that resides within him. The nine-tailed fox, the Kyuubi. The Biju that attacked the village on the day of his birth and almost destroyed it if it weren't for the fourth Hokage, who sacrificed his own life to seal the demon within Naruto. Now Naruto knew about the fox by meeting the demon after a severe beating he got from the villagers one day. After that he began training so he wouldn't get beaten up again. Naruto was quite smart and he read through every book he got his hands on. He did that by sneaking into the library at night and read through the night. Naruto's skills were found out by the Sandaime Hokage, and against his better judgment he let Naruto enter the ninja ranks early. Naruto rose through the ranks faster than the prodigy Uchiha, Itachi did. He's been an Anbu for 2 years and so far enjoyed the work, though he would never get used to killing. He was glad that the other Anbu, Junin and Special Junin, didn't hate him and even some befriended him. His close friends were Anko, Kakashi, Hayate, Itachi and Yugao. They were his family since he had none. They were all handpicked to help teach Naruto the skills he needed to be a shinobi. Anko, Kakashi, Yugao, Itachi, and Hayate all thought of Naruto not only a friend, but a little brother too. They were very protective of him and were his protection when he wasn't on a mission. They dished out the hurt to the villagers that harmed Naruto, not holding back at all. They did this since Naruto couldn't show